Hello, ladies. Welcome to the podcast Living in Your Feminine with me, your host, Victoria Jancke. This is a safe place for you, sisters. We're going to talk about all the feminine subjects, what it means to be a woman, how you thrive as a goddess, how you be successful in business. But we're also going to talk about subjects that people don't normally talk about, like miscarriage, because we want to educate people and also that women don't feel alone anymore. I have amazing experts who are going to give you so much value. So get a cup of tea and let's go. Welcome to another episode of Living in Your Feminine. Today I'm sitting here with my dear friend Vilina, and she's going to introduce herself.
Thank you. Hello, loves. My name is Vilina Malka. I'm an artist, intuitive healer with the Akashic Records, as well as a filmmaker.
Ooh, welcome. I am so excited. And can you share a little bit of your journey, because you're a traveler like me. You just based yourself in Miami, like me too. We have so many alignments. Yes. When did you decide you want to travel and why?
Yes, I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn, very much more in the matrix system and not so much connected to Gaia, to nature. I didn't have that experience. It was very much in the masculine of just creating and making things happen, which is, what New York is, right? The concrete jungle. And it wasn't until I really started going into nature and silent retreats, and I went to Costa Rica, that I finally heard myself, that I was away from technology and not drinking or not engaging in the way that I was engaging. And I finally listened, and the intuitive self or the higher self started to come in for the first time really ever. And it allowed me to take a look at what I was really doing, and this inner feminine that was really wanting to come out. And maybe she wasn't held. And I changed my lifestyle for a few years. And then it was really clear as my channel opened, there was so much guidance. It felt like I was upgraded and had the biggest promotion of my life to finally connect to the deepest sense of my soul, my essence, and my guides. And information was pouring in to the point that I couldn't sleep or eat. It was just like, oh my God, I'm here, and finally I get it. All these existential crises that I've had in my life before, where I couldn't really understand some of the larger questions in life, even studying the Kabbalah and other things. It's like I couldn't really get it. And finally it opened, and it set me on a 5-year journey of traveling and leaving my job, where I was working at Ralph Lauren and, an executive level and video production and leading. And I left, my friends, my job, my apartment, my life. And the guidance was go and let's follow and really trust. It required the deepest trust and intuitive just sense, and following this path that was absolutely magical and incredibly scary and deep, deep, deep healing. Even though I had done so much transformational work over the years, to really be full time in that space, in spiritual communities, in retreats, in just time alone with nature, was something that really I couldn't have imagined years before. And along this journey, about 2 years ago, I met somebody who kind of intuitively said, you're going to go back to the US and you're going to go, to the South with palm trees and water. And I thought, no, this woman's crazy. I don't even want to come back to the US. I want to be either here in Costa Rica or in Ibiza or grounding somewhere. And then lo and behold, my mom was here in the winter. I came to visit her, and I haven't left Miami. And it feels like finally I'm able to ground in all the things, right? All of the mystical and the magical and all of this priestess path and this sense into a place where I can action. and actually bring in the masculine that's supporting the feminine in a new way. So I'm here in kind of this grounding place, which is so beautiful. And I get to meet, new people and community like yourself, which I'm so excited about. So thank you for asking.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you shared also about Miami, because I felt the same when I came here, and I was on the way to a modeling agency, and I stepped out the car. And before, I was looking at different parts in Florida, like Naples and Fort Lauderdale. And when I stepped out of the car here in Miami, I just remember this moment of feeling, this is home. This is my place. And it's so interesting because everyone thinks about Miami, oh, it's this party city. Everyone, that's what people tell me from, I lived in Los Angeles before. They're like, but this Miami's all parties. I'm like, no, you attract what you are, right? And I'm not, both of us, we don't drink, we don't party. So we're not going there. Exactly. And, I just found Miami very healing. I also have my spiritual tribe here. So it's very interesting that you feel the same. And I love what you said that, because we all have both the masculine and the feminine, right? And I love what you said about bringing the masculine in to support the feminine. So it's like a dance. That was very beautiful. But I want to ask you something, because you said how old were you when you started traveling, by the way?
It was in different phases, but I finally left in, I traveled for a bit, I came back, and then I finally left in 2020, again, like full time.
Yeah. And you were how old? Like,
I was in my late 30s.
Late 30s?
Yeah.
That's amazing, because a lot of women think when they're like 30 or 40 or 50, they're too old. What is like not true, right? Exactly. I'm not 20 anymore. Yes. I can do it. Or even when they're like 20, they're like, I'm too young. I can do it. So we have I know I didn't want to be going too much in the age, but I want women to, especially who listen here, to feel that we don't need to be defined by age and what society is telling us. And you, like me, we're both travelers, we're both women, and it can be scary to travel by yourself as a woman. So what did you do in moments where you maybe felt scared? Did you have any techniques, or how did you, when you had a moment of like, I feel scared, how did you get out of this scarcity?
Well, one of the biggest fears that was coming up was like actually planning and not knowing where I was going next, which was so challenging because I'm a planner and I like to, I'm very good at infrastructured things. So when I was somewhere, but I didn't know where I was going to be the next week, I just had anxiety and panic because I felt unsafe. Like, oh my God, where am I going to be? And I don't know where to go. And so that was challenging, and I had to keep uprooting and then rerouting, right? So I finally felt safe somewhere. I was there for a few weeks, and then I had to go somewhere else. And it felt like I just felt safe, and I met this community, and now I have to go again. And so it was this constant like moving and rooting and rooting and rooting. This felt super unsafe, and I had to work through some of the traumas that were coming up with unsafety and feeling held, and also trusting that it was important for me to go, but also knowing that there was something very clear calling, right? It was an invitation, or someone I trust, said this key word and it sparked something because I was waiting, what's next? And then someone invited me somewhere. Most of the time, even if I was alone, really my connection with women was the biggest piece of all of it. The type of women and the most amazing, incredible beings held me. And most of the time I was traveling with women or with myself or meeting them later, but it was within tribe. Even if I was with a partner, there were times I was in partnership. The women, and seeing their journeys and holding each other, and then going deeper into the priestess path, which again is going through any of our betrayal issues as sisters, trust, flow, deep ceremonies together. So that helped me ground, that helped my heart, to know that they were people, even new people, that were just coming in. And maybe it was just for this one segment, but it was enough because we gave each other what we needed in that moment, or just codes, So really like trusting and letting go. And sometimes I would be like, at the edge of just not knowing what I was going to do. And I thought I was going to fall. And at that very edge is when the guidance comes in, but it wants you to wait to get to really 100% trust. And kind of almost like when you give up, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then finally it opens. So I had to really get into that flow state to allow all of these beautiful things and also challenging things to come into my life that I knew were for me, right? Like we know the things that we have to move through, which are so individual, yourself and me and any other person, our tikkun, right? Our refinement and correction. It's a Hebrew word in Kabbalah. It's like we each have a very particular path in that. And so I had to trust mine that was guided and surrounded by other beautiful beings that I was attracting.
I love that. I love what you said about, because I have that sometimes as well, that I feel, oh, now I'm in Miami for a week, then I'm going to Canada. So I always feel like, oh, now I'm comfortable. But what? I'm going again? Doesn't feel right. And then I also got invitations. Like we literally just talked about, I got invited to the Bahamas. Yes. So I'm going to the Bahamas tomorrow. But I love what you said, that it really helped you to connect with other women, because that's my whole purpose in life, to create a community of supportive women. That's why I'm doing this podcast as well. That's why I have female guests here, because I want us really to support each other and create a community. So I love that. In order to feel safe, it helps if you connect with other women, and you can go on Facebook groups, or you can, or if you see a woman, I like to do that. I go up to her, give her a compliment, and then you start talking with them, just really connecting, because there's a lot of women out there who are craving the sisterhood, because society and media is trying to separate us women and, trying to put this jealousy in it. But we're like, if you go back to how it was when we were, the men went out to hunt, the women were together. They were sitting in circles. They were, giving birth, grieving together. They would have each other's back. So if I sit here and you sit opposite of me and there's like a tiger or a bear coming, I would have your back. And I would tell you, sister, let's move, So women stayed together. And I love that. I really do love that. And I also love what you said about being in the flow and trusting. I feel that's a big thing, to trust. And it's like sometimes we just talked about it too, that I have sometimes I'm working on my trust. Yeah. How do you deal with it, for example, because do you trust everyone, or do you have moments where like, I don't trust this person? What do you do then? Do you just not talk to them, or do you have methods where okay, I breathe, let me look at this situation? What do you do when it comes to these moments?
It's a great question. And just going back to women, actually women have a lot of wounds still with each other. So I think we're also healing a lot of those sisterhood wounds. And there are many women I meet that actually don't have women friends, or they feel that they can't trust them. And so there's a deep wound that I've noticed, as I've spoken, and even with my clients. A lot of clients have issues with their mother and then other sisters, and feel betrayed. And this is actually the deepest part of the heart and the feminine, right? The Mother Mary and the Mary Magdalene, and kind of this lineage, right, of us being with each other. And I noticed that there are a lot of women that are still struggling. So I think it's important to reinstate that bond, like you said, because it's really part of us, and it helps us and it moves us. The trust is interesting. I would say, for me, I usually see the highest self in everyone. And sometimes there's a naivety and innocence with that I've had to learn to say, okay, maybe I'm seeing the higher self of someone in their essence, right? And at metaphysical level, but also let's look at the now, here and now, and the physical. What are they bringing here in an action, right? Versus what maybe the potential is, or what their light can be. So this is interesting, right? To separate both, which I've had to learn. And a lot of times they're mirrors, right? So some of the women that maybe had a lower vibrational energy, or they connected to some of, we'll say the dark side, or kind of the, this part of us that for me, I've had in other lifetimes, right? The dark feminine, and it's important. We need to go there. So actually some of the women I met, even in that, were the most beneficial to me understanding and integrating those parts of myself.
Could you, sorry for interrupting, but I don't think everyone knows what the dark feminine is. Could you touch base on what like the light and the dark feminine is?
Yeah. And I don't want to keep it that there's not a good or bad, and there's not it's not a judgment, right? They're just different frequencies, and they're all necessary. We can say the dark feminine sometimes in experiences, the way I would say it, there's a part of like a manipulation and maybe essence of sexuality that can be used in a way that maybe is out of integrity, we can say, or a part of us that is in the ego, or part of us that's in anger or rage or revenge, or, this type of part. And a lot of that actually does need to be expressed. There are things that we're angry about or that have happened to us, or maybe survival or whatever it is. There's so much parts to our lineage and our past lives that affect us today. And sometimes the women are there to show you. And this is, we spoke about earlier, the integrity part, right? The frequencies, even if you want to call them light or dark, which also could be called conscious, unconscious, right? If you want to look at it that way. The difference for me, the true difference, is the integrity and the values. So that's how I'm able to, for myself and with others, establish what's actually clear, right? What are their values in this life? How honest and integral are they? Are they thinking of others and consideration? Is this done egoically? Is it done because they're actually here to serve? And what are they serving? Are they serving the highest light of the divine, or are they serving different levels of, maybe addictions or manipulations or wanting or desires, right? That are short-term versus long-term. And so if we start to look at the values and the integrity and the honesty and the authenticity, right? Then you get to discern where that person is and where you are. And, if it's in alignment at that point in your life, because maybe you need to learn those lessons too. So that's, in a way, that's how I'm navigating, currently.
Yeah. And so the dark feminine, could you explain what the light feminine is as well? How would you describe the light feminine?
Mm-hmm. The light feminine, we can say the conscious feminine, right? There's a difference of like the compassion and the forgiveness and the connection to the deepest part of the heart. And the heart is where everything opens. I have chills, just blossoms from the heart. And when we're connected to the heart, this part of the conscious, or this feminine, to me, she's connected to her inner child. So there's an innocence and a sweetness there, right? And this possibility of everythingness and oneness. And she's really here in connection as well to the elements, right? And she's connected to herself, to others, into giving, into understanding that giving is receiving. And there's a selflessness as well as a selfishness, right? To take care of yourself as well as to give to others. So there's something beautiful there, and both are necessary. And so for me, I had a moment where I was really going into the darker parts of myself to understand what needed to be transformed and transmuted for me to come fully back to my heart and my presence within, and my deeper connection with God, my deeper connection with Source, with all of these lineages that have been part of my world, and to step into that integral part, right, of living here now in this physical sense.
I love that what you said, giving is receiving, and also giving to yourself as a woman, because we take care of so many other people as women, and it's important. It's very feminine to take care of yourself, and it's also feminine to say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
to have your values, to set boundaries. Maybe you want to talk more about that, because I know you're very passionate about that.
Yeah. Wow, this boundary piece, if only they taught us this in schools. What is holding your boundary and what are your needs? And I feel like as women, we mostly override that to please others, to make sure that we're accepted, to make sure that we're holding this role, whatever it is, as a daughter, as a girlfriend, as a wife, as a friend, as a teacher, as anything. We have this beautiful ability to give. And I think when we understand our boundaries and honesty, to really say, you know what, I understand, even if you're friends and your friends want you to go somewhere and come out and you feel like I just need space for myself, or I'm on my moon cycle and I want to be in the inner path. It's so important to say and speak it out. Thank you so much. I actually need some time for myself. I'm, working on some inner reflection. I appreciate it. I'll get back to you when I'm ready to connect again. This sense, or even with partners, what I need is, and my boundary here is this. And what I'm seeing right now is that either, that person is stepping over the boundary and then being able to talk about that. Hey, this boundary has been crossed and now this triggered me. And so now I have to work through this trigger and we have to work through it together because my boundary was crossed because you didn't honor it, right? And so now I'm triggered. And now I'm either angry or sad or I'm feeling something come up, because what are boundaries? Boundaries are, we know how to honor what allows our nervous system to be the safest, right? So for me, boundaries are, how do I stay in the safest part of myself with integrity to my needs so that I can show up for others? Because when I nourish myself fully, I am able to be there 100% for somebody else and for everyone. And when I'm not nourishing myself and my boundaries are being crossed or my needs are not being met, and I still have to show up, I'm showing up not in my highest light, not in my highest integrity, and not in really the way I want to, right? So how important, what if we all, to the best of our abilities, had our needs met? And they're not like, they're not 3D needs. Like there's some 3D needs, right? I need to eat nourishing food. I need to sleep. I need to have this. There's some things that are, and then there are also things that are more existential, but just all of the needs need to be met.
Yeah, I love what you said about, when you talk about the moon cycle, it's your period, yes, right? Because that's so interesting. I just learned that. Sorry, that's like, I just want to talk about very quick, because I didn't know that, but a lot of women, when they're not on, not taking the birth control or something, that they're very aligned with the full moon, when it's full moon that they get their period. And I was literally thinking, I always get my period when there's full moon.
So that means you're ovulating during the new moon, and then you get your period in the full moon. And sometimes it's switched. Yes. So I actually usually have my moon, my blood during the new moon. Yeah. And then I'm ovulating during the full moon. So I have like this, so it depends. There are these different phases. Yeah. Right? Different parts of the maiden and the circle of just how those alignments are. And this is so important actually when we talk about our needs, what part of the cycle we are and what we can give at that time, right? I know when I'm right about to bleed and then bleeding, I don't have the energy to give, and I actually want to be taken care of. And I want support, or maybe I just want space. And then when I'm in a higher cycle of, right, like close to ovulation and after, or even in the moon cycle, the waxing and the waning and the full moon, there's so much more energy and I'm able to give more and I have more excitement and the creativity, right? And like there's a drive. And so we're different than the masculine because we actually are driven by the moon, the physical moon, and then our cycle, right? And how that operates with our needs and our boundaries that need to be also shared. Because when you explain it to somebody and why and what state your body's in, it's also maybe easier for them to accept, right? It's not just like you made up something and also our needs change. So maybe my boundary one day is I need this, and then I worked through something and transformed, and maybe there's a shift. So it's also constant every day. We check in, right, on why we're here, what our needs are, the gratitude for being in life, our connection to source, and just constantly making sure that we are in a flow. And if we're not in a flow, what is the resistance or the block that's not allowing me to continue on this state of ease and grace? What is the resistance that I'm resisting at that time? And that's like the work we do every day, right?
Yeah. The flow comes up again. The flow, that's very feminine. And I love what you said about saying your needs, saying how you feel in this moment. Because when I have my period, I just want to be with me. That's my time to relax, because I have like cramps. I had endo, then I had an operation. So it's like less painful now. But the first day I just want to lie in bed.
Yes.
Do nothing. And that's okay. That is totally okay to feel that way. And, I love what you said, because my coach, she also, because I had before, I was working on telling my needs, and also to be feminine means that you can say yes to this thing in this moment, but you can change a few minutes later because you don't feel it anymore. And I'm very spontaneous, very adventurous. So for me, I always say like, yes, people pleasing, right? Yes. I said yes to everything, even though I didn't feel it. And now what I do is, I say something similar. I say, thank you for inviting me in this moment. I feel like it, but let's touch base tomorrow again. And I tell you if I still feel like it. And if you communicate it in a nice way, like you said it or like I said it, then people will understand. And honestly, the people who don't understand, they're maybe not the right people for you anyways, because you don't need to change for anyone and you don't need to do things. I always say as well to my girlfriends, like, I'm not gonna, if I don't feel like coming, you don't want me to be sitting there being in a low state and then putting everyone else down. If I need time for myself, I just take the time for myself. And then when I'm ready, then I'm there full of energy. Like you said, when you're in your cycle, then you're full of energy and then you can give. And that's okay. And I feel like we as women, we should be more open to say what we need without feeling ashamed. And I'm still working on it. Sometimes even like saying no for me feels hard. And then if I do, I feel like, oh my God, but what is this other person feeling? Do you have that as well? Sometimes when you say no, these feelings of like, oh.
Yeah. I sometimes second guess, right? Oh, maybe I should have gone. And, there's a moment, there's a doubt. The doubt is normal. We're humans, right? And then I look at the doubt and I'm like, what am I doubting? And who is doubting within me? Is it my inner child? Is it this? Is it the part of me that feels they want to connect? Which part of me is in doubt? And then I just process it, but then I also honor it. I process and I honor. I made the decision because it's what I needed at the time. So it's not to push myself, but I check in. Who is it? Who is it that's upset, right? Within me? What part of me? And so, of course, I think we have doubts, and then it's so important to just allow it and not second guess it after it's done. Oh, maybe I should have, or maybe I could have pushed myself, or maybe, it was important to meet somebody. If something was really needed to happen during that engagement, it'll happen anyway, with or without you being there. And, as we're talking about our cycles, our womb is the most important thing as women, to listen to the womb. And she speaks and she has sounds, and even connecting with her and yelling with her, crying with her, feeling her, right? It's so intimate. I mean, it's another topic, but I was on birth control for many years, for like 9 years or so before I got off it. And I actually feel like I only became a woman when I got off that birth control, because I realized all my hormones were just stagnant. And even my sexuality and my desires and my moods, it was like I was a zombie, living in this life. When I got off it and you finally connect to your blood, to just like the initiation of the womb and the magic that we hold, it changes everything. And I think that's another part that we lose in societal structures that don't teach you. It's not that you just take Advil and ibuprofen and pretend that you're not on your moon and you're the same, right? It's no, actually, I'm slower today. I'm softer today. I'm on my moon. I have to lay down. I'm going to try to do some work, or maybe I'll have to cancel the call that I planned because I just don't feel I can do it today. And people understand. I find that people hear you when you speak vulnerably and from truth. That's when they hear you, not when you come up with an excuse or you say something that they want to hear. When you speak so vulnerably from your heart to someone, there's nothing they can argue with because you're not blaming, pointing a finger. There's nothing to be defensive about when you say, I'm working through, my inner child's really triggered right now. And she feels, some things have come up with this recent, et cetera, this thing. And I really need to give her some space right now. I'm so sorry. I know we committed to these plans and it's not the right time for me. Can you hear that? There's really nothing someone can say to take away the most vulnerable part of yourself that you were choosing to share. And I think that's important, right? That we don't just share some random thing, right? We're sharing the deepest part of our heart, and we're giving that to someone, right? And then they get to receive it.
Yeah. I love that. Speak from your vulnerable truth, because that's another thing. What the masculine tells a lot is to not show emotions, to be strong and all this. But I feel it's very beautiful to show emotions and to be vulnerable and to just, speak the truth from your heart. And, I would try that the next time when I'm on my period. I haven't done that I tell people I'm like, I also love when you say I'm on my moon. That sounds very cute. I love that. Yeah. I'm going to use that. I'm on my moon. I just have cramps and I do not feel like it.
Exactly.
But what do you do if people don't understand?
I've never come to that experience where people don't understand.
And if so, it doesn't matter because it's your life.
There could certainly be disappointment, but from my experience, people hear you and they say, thank you, please take care of yourself. And that's it. And so it's important to try it. It's not just another day. There are even rituals that women do in different communities I've been in and different workshops where you commit to not speaking to anyone during your moon for 3 days and you just cocoon and, you get food made for you even, or just, you basically don't work so much, because what happens during the moon is that our inner wise woman, it's actually the part where we're the most intuitive. And actually sitting with meditation and tuning in, you'll have the clarity. And through the pain or the cramps and all of that, your body's telling you something. So even moving through it or yelling or crying or just feeling and releasing, there's something, it's basically asking us to have our own mini retreat every month, right? And so there's some women that also practice that. They go into a cocoon and they really honor that inner woman. And not all of us can do that. We have different things going on in our life, but to the best of your ability, like for me, I have 2 days I really just I can't function. I need to really be in, and I let people know. And I've never had anyone try to say something else, because again, when you're speaking vulnerably, and I've had men some of my clients change the way they speak to others. And I said, well, why don't you try to say it vulnerably to that person? And they have. And it changed everything, because there's no way to disagree with somebody's hurt or somebody's process. And when someone tells you, hey, I'm going through something with my wife, and right now I'm just really processing this and I'm unable to focus on this, I need a few days. What can you say to that person? They're not saying, hey, I'm unavailable, I'm too busy. That's different. You can say, well, hey, I'd like you to prioritize this. Why aren't you doing this? But when you say a real thing that's happening in your world, now no one can really disagree with you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's beautiful too. I feel like we as human, need to stop faking things and being more true to ourselves and to others. And it's beautiful when you're being vulnerable. And the most successful people are actually actors and actresses. They're all very vulnerable. If you watch their interviews, their speeches, they're very emotional, very empowering, and very authentic as well. Wow, this is This is so beautiful. I'm just processing so much right now. My whole heart, we both touched our womb here, and there were so many beautiful nuggets in there. And it's just also for the feminine, I feel it's maybe when you have your period, it's just the time for you to reconnect with yourself and to slow down, because I feel that's very feminine as well, to slow down and to be with you and to, nourish yourself, your soul. And I'm going to do that now when I have my period. I just finished my period, so now I have more energy. I feel it, like, let's do another podcast and another thing, and I'm going to do dancing, and I do all these things. And before I was like, yesterday I got a massage. That was my last day of my period, to celebrate it. I love what you said about having a little retreat when you have your period. Ladies, we should do that. The next time when you have your period, just make it a little retreat, light a candle, get a nice cup of tea, get a heating bottle, just enjoy.
Exactly. They call it the red tent. So that's the kind of ancestral way of just in lineages before, and medicine women and, women of this indigenous world. It's like the red tent is where we go and we just rest. And we take care and we tune in, right? Yeah. And this is the wisdom. And also, and then afterwards, it's like the part of it, like you said, then there's a celebration, because the feminine, the part of her is also the laughter and the giggles and the joy and the celebration, and not taking it seriously and just ease and flow, right? Where the masculine is more like structured and like has plans and and everything's very organized, and that we need that too. But the part of the feminine is also just like the celebration, and we get to celebrate her in different parts, right? So that also, just even thinking about it, brings me joy that we can celebrate. Even as you were saying later, you're going to celebrate. I'm also going to be in my art studio, kind of just creating. And then this again, it's all very feminine, and the masculines also have it. The biggest thing we can do in this lifetime for all of us is integrate both the masculine and feminine in the women and the men. That's where it is. When we both integrate both, right? Within ourselves, a divine union, the sacred union within us, to then allow us to meet another masculine that's also in his sacred union with himself, to come together to really create that divine union in harmony with our hearts, with our sexuality, with, the kundalini within us. That's essentially the deepest mission we can do, is find that other to even spread that energy and make it shine even brighter, because we're both there to impact, heal, mirror, love, accept each other. And it's such a sweet thing to even, to consider. This is part of our exploration here and our part here, right? That we play.
Yeah, I love, we all have the feminine and the masculine, and we all have a core, right? So I'm like, in my core, I'm feminine, but I have my masculine.
Yes.
And I lost contact to my feminine core for many years in my life. And it's interesting what you said also about the birth control, that you didn't feel like a woman. I felt the same. Now I don't have any birth control, nothing, and I feel more feminine. I also healed a lot of wounds where, like trauma, sexual trauma, where I didn't feel safe in my feminine. And now I literally shared that on my social media and with a guy that I'm seeing and my girlfriends. I was like, I love being a woman. I'm feeling so free as a woman. I'm like, I love being feminine.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that I don't love my masculine side. My masculine side gets shit done, it's like the workforce, but in my core I'm feminine, and it's very beautiful when we are connected to our core and to both, like the feminine and the masculine within ourselves. This was so beautiful. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're so beautiful, Vilina. Really, what you shared is incredible. Is there anything else you want to let the world know, the girls? Is there anything that you feel called to share?
Yeah, I'm stepping even deeper in the inner feminine, working on a film series about the priestesses and about the oracles and the wisdom keepers. And it's like I want to share, and letting the women know that it's time for us to share our deepest inner wisdom in whatever tool set we have, whether it's film or art or poetry or music or writing or accounting or lawyering, whatever it is that we bring this essence, but we remember and we come home. That's really our path, that we heal ourselves, we work on ourselves. We don't stop the transformational work, because then we can inspire others in whatever tool set we have on this earth, right? And yeah, working with the Akashic Records to me is just such a joy, in working with others to really understand what are the things that are holding us back. And whether it's in our bloodline or our past lifeline, how do we continue being the most liberated version of ourselves and carrying all of this, and how to start to integrate and release. And so just, wanting to inspire everyone to do that. And of course, I'm here to offer any services or support if that's aligned for any of these beautiful women that are listening. And I really appreciate being here and your invitation to have me. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I love what you said about coming home. So maybe when you, turn off your phone now, just come home to yourself, give yourself a hug, have a cup of tea, and just nurture yourself and nourish yourself. I thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a beautiful essence and spark and creating this platform for women. What a mission. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. If you like this episode, please rate, subscribe, and share with other women. Let's create a community of women living in their feminine and supporting each other. If you want to stay connected with me, you can come and follow me on my personal account at victoria.jancke. Until then, I see you next Thursday. Be thriving, goddess, and live in your feminine.